Hey folks, Greenstuff Gav here. This week we're doing some more converting. Now a friend of mine, Dionzi, sent me a photo of Genestealer Magus, which has been converted into Neferata for Warhammer Fantasy 6th edition. I'll stick a copy of it up here somewhere. And thanks to Troll Trader, I was able to get current Neferata bits and picked up the Genestealer Magus. So I thought we'd go ahead and try and duplicate the conversion, and Alhouse can use it in his Warhammer Fantasy 6th edition Undead army. And yeah, it's always nice to do a bit of converting, have a bit of fun. So here we go. Now I've got her throne here, which we're not going to use, obviously, and the Genestealer Magus, which is a fantastic, lovely sculpt. Almost a shame to convert her. However, we do need a nice undead lady instead. So the conversion Dionzi linked. It was basically just a head swap, effectively. The Neferata's head and staff on the Genestealer Magus. We're going to be a little more intricate than that. We're going to get rid of the Genestealer cult stuff, and we're probably going to try using Neferata's arms just to give her a bit more of a commanding presence. So we're going to just tidy up the flash. And get the legs assembled, because I think the legs, torso will all be stock. It's when we come to the arms that there's really going to be a big difference. So just cleaning up all the flash. All these vials that the Magus comes with still fit for Neferata, because it can be vials of blood, that sort of thing. Again, the sculpt is fantastic, some lovely details on it. I should have some instructions here, I think. I reckon I just glue that on there. So the leg goes in there. Still using the colour forward super glue, so very watery. We want to be very careful not to get glue everywhere. Sits in there nice. Touch of glue to get the rest of the skirt. It's not sitting very well. There we are. So we'll glue them on the base in a minute. I'd like to get the torso together so that we can see what's going on and where we're going to be posed. So you've got back, front, and that lovely ribbed section. I think we'll keep all of the ribbed section. I was tempted to cut all this down, but I think it adds to the majesty with Neferata's huge crown. So we're just going to take these bits off. Right, we're gonna dry fit. Does that go? Do we have to put the torso on first? No, that's good. Because what we're gonna do is, obviously you're supposed to glue these parts together and then glue them onto the legs. But we're just going to glue this piece to the legs, then we can dry fit the torso to see where we can cut and where Neferata's arms fit best, if they even fit at all. That's the thing with doing a freeform conversions like this. It's always good to dry fit just to check everything goes together well. Because if it doesn't, you can adjust your conversion to fit. So we're going to take off all these nubs, a little bit of flash. For big ribbed pieces like this, you want to keep them nice and smooth so that they you can have a nice bone colour, I imagine. Not sure about this bit either. What else can I do with it though? I think the pipe work can come off. Let's find my scalpel. Just to take this pipe work off, because that's a bit too sci-fi. Tidy it up. Sort of thing that can't be done when everything's glued together. Or can't be done easily, rather. Just tighten that. Not sure on that, but we'll come back to it. So fits on well. In fact, that actually stays on without any glue, but we will glue it. A bit too much glue. Okay, so I think she's gonna have to go right on the front of the base. Mind you, as a character, that's where she should be anyway. I think I'm going to glue it there to give it something to hold on to. Obviously, we want to get her so her head is central. Not too worried about anything else. That's going to go well. Okay, so while that dries, let's have a look at these arms. So we'll need this piece, which is the front, but that'll be after we've glued this on. Then there's the head with the skull, because that's very Neferata. Mind you, that depends on what the arms do. So let's have a look at Neferata's arms. Obviously the staff is the important part. We'd like to keep this intact if we can. Her dress piece in the bits box. And obviously, having bought this from Troll Trader's bits site, we got bits of sprue still, so I'll have them off. Let's have a look. Where's the rest of her arm? Okay, so she's got half her arms on her torso, so that's going to be no good to us. Obviously, while that will go straight on, that won't rank up at all. So I'd like to have our arm up. I'm wondering if we slice here very carefully, we can maneuver the arm. Remove this. Problem with the Gene Stealer arm is that's never going to rank up. Even if we leave the arm intact and just put that on, that's still the same issue. The head's too long, so it's going to hit on the floor, and this overhang means you'll only ever be able to go in one corner. So I think it's going to be a bit of work. We're going to have to cut this arm right into the armpit, remove the arm from the elbow, and try and line it up here. So while we're here, let's have a look at the other arm as well. This lovely ornate dagger that I do believe in Age of Sigmar just outright kills you on a 1 or something stupid. So we'll carefully cut this off. Our head's there, so we're going to need that. Again, if we put the torso in place, problem is the folds on the cloak won't fit, so I think we're going to have to do both arms. But it also means that where this cape comes round, we can use some green stuff to blend that in to get rid of that horrible 40k bit. So I think that'll actually work out well. So we are going to have to remove both arms, but we want to keep them intact so that we can reuse them. So before I do, I'm going to take my scalpel to clean up any flash. It's easier to do it before we start cutting things apart. So we're going to follow the detail here. We're going to cut into here and down here. Cut into here and down here. We're going to try not to damage either of these pieces. So to do that, we need a piece of foam to brace against. Going to carefully quite even. Just very carefully. I mean, the main reason being we don't want to have to resculpt arms if we don't have to. I know the channel's called Green Stuff Gav, but there's no point wasting time sculpting if you don't have to. Okay, so this should just come off. Which is good because we can re-glue it back on and do some green stuff. Put that there safe. straight off. So before we look at cutting the arms, let's just tidy up the armpits where we've cut, just to get this nice and smooth. I think we can then glue this back in place. Obviously we'll be doing some green stuff gap fill anyway, but the smoother the better. So that can go straight on there. Then we're going to put the rest of her dress part on first, because when we put the arms on we can bring the arms round. So I'm looking at this, there's a load of pipe work here that we're going to, is that pipe work or is that armour? Right, we are going to need this. Tabard's nice, but it's got a pistol on it. No, on that one. I'll have a look. It is pipe work, but it could be painted as gold rings. Because to cut this off, that's going to weaken all this structure too much. Oh, and there's a bit of loose glue because that's actually stuck. Let's peel this off so I can tidy up the flash. When dry fitting, go careful. No, that's glued on there now. So you don't want to try snapping it. I don't want to snap it off because then it'll break. So we're going to have to just tidy up this flash while it's in place. I might try running a little bit of glue into that gap as well. So to do this, take a piece of plastic card, just a bit of scrap offcuts, put glue on it, and run it into the gap. Drop a glue on it, run it into the gap. Thankfully this colour forged glue is very watery, or very liquid, so it don't want to squeeze it on there because it'll go everywhere. So sometimes putting it onto a bit of offcut or a toothpick, something like that, can help you just control where the glue is going. So let's have a look at these arms next. So there's a nice handy line here, which is where we're going to cut the arm. I think what might be more sensible to do is just tidy up this flashing first. And then, very similar to what we did with the Dwarf Lord, is I'm going to probably glue this straight to the base and then work the arms around to fit. Gives us a bit more stability and we can pose it a bit better. Again, once this thing's in place, it's going to be a nightmare to try and clean any flash off, so we're going to try getting it now. Have some time later. Okay, so this piece here we can see is going to be too long. down first. I think that staff might need trimming as well. It's just sitting too high. So I think it's going to be a shame to lose this piece, but I'm going to cut it here so that it sits nice. It'll look a bit more natural on her. I've got a small bit of flash there I missed as well. Okay, so we're going to have to trim the rest of the robes a touch more as well. So that's how much we're going to have to cut off. Glue that there. This piece is really, really annoying, so we're just going to try bending it out of the way. I have to cut it off. I'm going to have to cut it off so it sits a bit better, but we're just going to roughly cut it, and we're going to have to do some green stuff in. Sits a lot better. So I'm going to put a dab of green stuff here on the hip, dab on the end of the staff, and I'm actually going to glue the staff to the base. Just like I say, that will then give us the opportunity to work the arm to fit. I think I am going to have to sculpt the arm though. We're going to have to sculpt all the robes anyway, so let's get this in place. It's going to be a nice pose as well, so we're just going to put sausage green stuff in there, then we're going to bring this robe out and round and try not to glue it to my fingers. Yeah, so we're going to bring this robe up to here, and we'll just give her, and that will help cover all this up as well. Put some sausage green stuff in there to resculpt the arm. Let's just get the pose right before the glue dries completely. That will also look quite regal, I think. So I think we're going to have the same issue with this arm. That's not going to go. So I think we're going to do the same here. We're going to cut the robe to fit on the base, tidy it up, glue it in place like this, and then sculpt the arm. So let's tidy up some of this flash first. Again, sprue join parts where the sprue joins the model. Just tidy it up. This part I imagine we're going to cut off anyway. Right. So next. this piece. So by lining this piece up, I'm going to cut it right there. So again, this won't be massively stable, but it will last until we get some green stuff on there. I think we're going to have to trim this part. But yeah, so let's just take that off a touch. Took a bit too much off there. This is literally only going to be glued to the base then. So we've got plenty of glue on there. Pose it correctly. This is where Superglue Accelerator is your friend. Cool. So we're gonna sculpt some robes up here, sculpt these robes up here, fill in these gaps, sculpt the two arms where they're missing. That's a heck of an arm. That's better. But in the meantime, let's get her head in place. That's going to be a big part. Now these two arms obviously are quite tiny, so I'm going to put them aside. We're not going to use any of these extra Gene Stealer parts or the throat. So we've got Neferata's head. Obviously the head is a focal point of any miniature, so it's always worth spending some extra time and extra care. Now I'm going to actually just bend it like this so I can get a knife in there. That's her face, and there's the rest of the head. So I'm going to carefully cut these away. And that can go in the rest of the bits box. So let's tidy up the flash, get the head assembled, get the head in place. Then we'll have to wait for it all to dry before we do some green stuff in. Because you don't want to put wet green stuff anywhere near glue. And obviously, face is a focal part of any miniature, so we're going to carefully make sure this is all tidy. That's where people will be looking. Awesome. So, dab of glue there. A moment to set. Okay, so we've hit a stumbling block. So I'm going to have to cut away Neferata's neck a touch so it sits on the Gene Stealer Magus' neck. Nice. So, get rid of the clippers, get rid of that. Obviously, we need to be very careful around this chin, so using a sharp knife, sharp scalpel, we're just going to carefully cut this neck away. And we're going to leave quite a large chunk because it's easier to cut back than it is to replace. So carefully just trim. Dry fit and see. Yeah, that's a much better fit. It's going to need some green stuff in there. But right, let's put this in place. Obviously, the other method would be is with this separate, put some green stuff on, let it dry. Push it in place, then let it dry, and then glue it. But I have faith. Just want to get this lined up right. Make sure it's on straight. Again, would love some accelerator. But while it's dry, we could just maneuver it a touch. One Neferata. Just needing a bit of green stuff, so we've got to fill in all the neck, sculpt these arms, bring these robes up, do something to cover this. Yeah, I reckon that's looking quite cool. So I'm going to put this down, I'm going to let her dry, and I'll be back in a bit. So the glue's had time to set. We're going to look at filling some gaps and replacing these bits that are missing. I've mixed up a load of green stuff, so we're going to do the smaller inner details first. Mainly because as I said during the Space Wolf video, we want to move bits so that we don't go squishing it and touching stuff that needs to dry. So let's look at fixing the inner neck first. We need just a small amount of green stuff. I don't know if you guys can see right in the neck there's an unsightly join, so we're going to need a touch of green stuff. That's going to be far too much as well, so let's get just the smallest amount. So although you can barely see the amount of green stuff there, when it comes to be painted it will be more noticeable, so we're going to just plop that in there eventually. Squish it in. Squish it in to get rid of that ugly little gap. We've got a small gap here. That more comes down to my assembly, so we're also going to do the same there. This time with sausage of green stuff. Just gonna fill that gap. Remembering to leave the seam because this is two separate bits of cloth. Okay. I'm also going to fill this gap. We might not see any of it by the time we've got all of this done, but I'll know it's there, so rather than risk having it show afterwards, we'll just fill it. It'll also mean we can tidy up here, so I'm not understanding where the detail is. So let's look at these arms. Now, because this is only a part of the arm, we're going to get away with just a simple sausage of green stuff. But we need to make sure the thickness is right, so it's a touch too much. Sausage green stuff, and then about that much. That's all we're going to do is anchor this into the arm. Obviously, if we were going all the way, we'd sculpt some, we'd look at the armature and sculpt it appropriately with sort of the shoulder joint, the bicep, but I don't think it's going to be too visible. So we'll just give a gentle touch and a hint of some detail on there, but not going to go too intricate. It's mainly getting it so the shape looks right. Do nicely. We can do the same on the other arm. That's too much green stuff. Well, might be about right. But this time we're gonna attach it to the armpit and then work it outwards, because this is quite an unusual pose. Anchor that in there. Thankfully, where this is still a bit flexible, we can poke it around. And just make sure the elbow lines up. Anchor it to the elbow, and then we'll tidy it up. That's enough green stuff. Now have a look at it. Get that anchored so it's not going to move about. And yeah, I'm going to need a bit more green stuff on that. So let's get this bit sorted first. And I'm just going to add a touch more green stuff on the back. Just to bulk it up a touch. Ideally you'd let this set first, but we're not gonna have a video that's 4.5 hours long. And again, we're here to just make something cool. Certainly not a competition entry, certainly not the sort of thing that you'll be producing, because obviously if you do a sculpt that's for sale, you want to tidy it up and make sure it's done properly. But as this is a conversion for a friend's army, we can cut some corners, because it's the end effect that's going to be the proof of the pudding. And again, we're going to just give the hint of detail here. By the time she's painted, no one will really notice. I quite like that arm pose now. Okay, have we got any more work to do? Right, we're going to fix these parts next. This is going to be the big one. So we're going to take a large blob of green stuff, get it quite flat, just plonk it in place and then manipulate it. In fact, still not entirely sure what I want to do with this backpack. So let's get this robe fixed and then we'll have a look. Manipulate this to get that nice sort of curve to it, very similar to the other side. See, the key to green stuff in is just take your time and just keep pushing it and keep pushing it till it looks right. And then smooth out all your fingerprints and marks. Don't want any of that, so I'll show up under paint. so I might stick a little skull on there, I think. Turn this into a little, almost like a stole, like a bit of a scarf, all folds of cloth. Let's have a quick look and see. So by pressing this side in the touch and this side further, that'll give us some folds. Then we're just going to smooth them out to make them look a bit more natural. I'm going to leave this piece here because I am going to stick skull on there. I've decided. More skulls, it's very Warhammer. So. And we're just blending this putty just to make it a bit smoother and make the details look a bit more flowing than just stuck on. I think I'm gonna add a single strip of scarf there. So what I'm going to do, instead of sculpting this directly onto the miniature, I'm going to find a base, a bit of plastic card. Let's find a piece of plastic card. Obviously the Gene Stealer cultist had that lovely tabard. So we're going to do a pressed mould of it first. See if we could do this via press mould. If not, I'm going to have to cut this pistol up. But basically, the detail we've been left with here is just needs something. I think it's just a bit flat, so that's what the end result will be. It's one of these hanging. But while I love all this detail, I don't like the Gene Stealer icon on there. So we're going, first of all, going to try press moulding, and then we're going to try, if that doesn't work, we'll end up cutting this. Obviously we only need detail on one side as well, which is good. So with this lump of green stuff we've got left over, a smaller bit of plastic. A nice sausage greens, nice lump of green stuff stuff out, smooth it off, and we're gonna dip this in water. You might see it's all shiny, it's all wet. We're just gonna push it into the putty. So that when that dries, we can peel it out, put some green stuff in. So, in the meantime, let's see if we got any more tidying up to do on this. Okay, that works well. Like I say, I'm going to put the thing out there. Just a hint of a bicep. Works well. Okay, I had planned on finishing her here, but we're gonna have to wait for that to set. So I'm gonna pause the video. It'll probably be a good 12 hours or so before that green stuff's set. So, but for you guys on the internet, this will be a couple of minutes. So, back in a minute. Okay, so we've given that plenty of time to dry. Green stuff's all hard, so we're going to peel the miniature off, put that aside. We're going to try press moulding into this to see if we can get a decent piece. If not, we'll have to cut the original and put the original in. So I have some water to put this green stuff mould into. See, there's plenty of water on there. I'm going to take sausage green stuff, just place it on top for the moment. And it's sticking to me. Then take some more plastic card, simply push this against it. If we peel the mould off, you can see we get duplicate. Now obviously we've put more green stuff on, so it's gone everywhere. So what we're going to do is trim this back. Trim all the excess off. Get rid of all this green stuff. So that doesn't need any tidying. What we're going to do, we're going to take a scalpel, get it soaking wet, dip into water carefully. Now you could just leave this to set and then peel it off and glue it on, but time more than anything means I'm going to cut it, but keeping it wet. Means that we can stick this on and then blend it in while it's still wet, he says as he drops it. And the reason we're doing this while it's wet means that we can manipulate it a bit to give it a bit more posing. So we're going to stick it in place, make sure it's nice and secure. Then we're going to move it about. As we said previously, it's all about just manipulating the green stuff till you get the shape, until it looks good. So I've put this at a curved angle. Could let that dry, then I'm going to trim this edge back with a skull on here and a skull on here, and that will be her done. So back in a minute. Okay, so that's had plenty of time to dry. As we can see, we've kept all this lovely detail. The last thing to do, I'd like to put a skull here and a skull hanging off this little tabard, and then she'll be done. Now I keep a box full of skulls. It's always useful, especially if you're doing anything Warhammer Fantasy related. Obviously Games Workshop sell a bag of skulls, and several other manufacturers also do fairly similar products. So all we're doing, we're looking for a couple of smaller scale skulls. There's a nice one. That one's nice, but a bit too damaged. We'll be tempted to have like a orc skull, but we're going to stick to traditional fantasy for this one. Let's find another smaller scale skull. And again, the good thing is we can dry fit anything. So that one's going to be a touch too big, I think. So I might cut that one down. Well, the horned one would be nice. It's not going to sit on there not very well. I think we are going to cut down that skull. A whole range of fantasy 40k. Metal, plastic, resin, just a whole load of skulls and bits and pieces. I think that's the same size. That's a nice skull, but it's got look very chaos instead of undead. Yep, I think those two are our best choices. Put these back in here. All we're going to do is cut that down to fit in there. So we've got our sharp scalpel. I said central. Again, we're going to dry fit that, make sure that sits on there. We've got some flex there, so lift this up so we can get it nice and straight. Give that a second to dry. Again, accelerator would be good. Cool. And there we have it. A nice striding Neferata on foot, ready to go into Alhaus's army. I'll take a couple of photos, stick a couple of photos up on the end here. But thank you for watching, and as always, have fun.